There's a specific kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You wake up, you know what you should do, and somehow you don't. Not because you can't, but because something in you quietly refuses. You call it laziness, but your brain calls it something else. It often looks like procrastination, missed goals, a constant feeling of being behind. But inside it feels different. You feel heavy before you even start. Tasks that matter feel strangely empty. Even success feels muted, like it belongs to someone else. You might still function. Go to work. Reply to messages. Meet expectations. But there's a subtle numbness underneath it all. A quiet resistance. As if your mind is dragging its feet through a life it never agreed to live. Psychology has a name for this pattern. It's not laziness. It's emotional avoidance tied to identity conflict. Here's the refrain most people never hear. Your brain is not failing you. It's protecting you. In cognitive psychology, avoidance is not a flaw. It's a strategy. When the mind senses long-term emotional threat, it doesn't always respond with fear. Sometimes it responds with disengagement. Low energy. Low drive. Low urgency. Not because you don't care, but because caring would cost too much. Let's slow this down. Imagine your motivation system like a navigation app. Dopamine doesn't reward effort. It rewards movement toward a meaningful destination. When your brain can't see itself in the future you're moving toward, dopamine drops. Not as punishment, as feedback. Neuroscience shows that when goals conflict with identity, the brain flags them as unsafe. Not physically unsafe, psychologically unsafe. So instead of pushing you forward, your nervous system applies the brakes. Fatigue becomes the signal. Distraction becomes the escape route. Procrastination becomes emotional anesthesia. This is called motivational shutdown. And it often happens when you're living out expectations instead of values. Your life direction was chosen in survival mode. Or your identity never had space to form freely. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people don't choose their lives. They inherit them. Family roles, cultural scripts, early praise for being easy, reliable, or smart. Over time, you learn which version of you is acceptable. And slowly, that version becomes a cage. Psychologically, this creates self-alienation. You're not avoiding work. You're avoiding being someone you no longer recognize. Your brain senses this mismatch and pulls energy away to prevent deeper emotional loss. That's not weakness. That's self-preservation. This is not about forcing motivation back. Force increases resistance. Instead, this is about restoring alignment. In psychology, awareness reduces threat response. Instead of "I'm lazy, try," "I'm avoiding something that feels emotionally wrong." That language shift matters. It moves the brain from shame to curiosity. Shame activates the amygdala. Curiosity activates the prefrontal cortex. Ask quietly, what did I agree to without realizing it? Approval, stability, safety. Your brain remembers old contracts, even when your conscious mind has outgrown them. Motivation doesn't return until those contracts are renegotiated. The brain avoids actions that threaten identity. So don't ask, how do I change my whole life? Ask instead, how can I take one step? That doesn't require becoming a different person. Tiny actions with low identity risk. Restore dopamine flow. Low energy doesn't always mean rest is needed. Sometimes it means meaning is missing. Behavioral psychology shows that perceived meaning can override fatigue signals. Not through motivation, through coherence. When action aligns with self, energy follows naturally. Here's the model to remember. Laziness is often the nervous system saying, this direction costs too much of who I am. Think of yourself as a compass. When you're aligned, movement feels natural. When you're off course, movement feels heavy. The weight you feel is information, not a verdict. You don't need to push harder. You need to listen more carefully. Your avoidance isn't the enemy. It's a signal from a self that hasn't been consulted. And when you finally start asking what you want to move toward, not what you should want, not what makes sense on paper, Something subtle shifts. Energy doesn't explode. It returns quietly. Like a part of you. Coming back online. You were never lazy. You were protecting yourself. From disappearing.